everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be my review of the premiere episode of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Now there may be spoilers throughout, so just beware when going into this overall video. So as most people will know, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is the second prequel spin-off to the mega successful Game of Thrones TV series, which ran for 8 seasons back from 2010, and of course was based on George R.R. Martin's fantasy novel series A Song of Ice and Fire. And this saw the story of the major battle of power across the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros. The first prequel series, titled House of the Dragon, debuted back in 2022 and will enjoy its third season later on in this year of 2026. Now, in terms of the overall timeline, Seven Kingdoms is set around 100 years before the events of Game of Thrones and around 70 years after those of the House of the Dragon. Here, the civil war within the Targaryen dynasty has been resolved for the most part, and all of the legendary dragons have now become extinct. This time we have a much more smaller story focusing on the main character of Sir Duncan the Tail, or Dunk as he's referred to later on, who we see at the start burying his master before setting off in what is, to be honest, a pretty uneventful journey when we see him meeting various people, whether it's certain knights or guardsmen or various other prostitutes. We see him later on go to a party in a large tent where he meets the drunken prince, who is the heir to the House Baratheon, and we all know how that bloodline ties in later on down the line. We see them later on have a bit of a laugh and a dance, and then we get to the final scene where we see Duncan meets a very young, bold child named Egg, who in terms of the whole timeline will eventually become King Aegon Targaryen V. And Duncan, we see him here electing to pick him to become his overall squire. Now, I've always been cynical within prequel stories to successful TV series, as for the most part they seem very unnecessary cash-ins, just to try and milk a bit of extra out of the long-running franchise. We've seen this multiple times, most recently, of course, with the likes of both The Walking Dead and also Spartacus. Now, that perception changed slightly with House of the Dragon, especially with its first season, which was absolutely exceptional, and a prime example of how a prequel story can stand on its own without necessarily linking to the sequel story. But in terms of The Night in Shadows and its first episode, I have to say that this was overall very bland, underwhelming, and just a bit boring. Now, I fully understand that this is a much more smaller scale tale within Westeros. It's a one character journey, so we will not be seeing any large scale armies or dragon encounters as what we got with previous shows before. But a premiere episode of any series should also entice or excite the viewer into the story and get them invested as to what follows next. But this first episode was just very light, where really nothing happened of any note. Now, I imagine the more hardcore fans of the series will probably outlook and see a lot more elements that would deem far more significant, that will play a much more major role down the timeline later on. But you just didn't feel anything here, and I feel much more could have been done in terms of what actually happens in this overall episode. In fact, when we go over the events of this installment, it easily could have been condensed into half an episode, and then we could have progressed much more with the story. Now, perhaps that would have meant that the proposed 6 episodes wouldn't have much more mileage to go upon, which again raises the question as to whether there's enough story here to warrant a full 6 episode series, or whether it actually warrants a story at all. Whilst we will get some small references, I suppose, to the events of Game of Thrones and the events of House of Dragon and precursors to Game of Thrones, we did see something similar, of course, with House of the Dragon. I really don't think we're going to see the same resonance or significance as what we saw with the previous series. And just from an outside, more casual viewer point of view, I'm asking exactly what is the point of this show to begin with? Why should I be compelled? House of the Dragon had the large scope, the multiple characters and performances to really give you a lot of meat to chew on and get immersed into. But I don't really feel we're going to get the same story here. It almost feels as this could have been just a standalone 90-minute installment just to show another part of Westeros, but even then you wonder what is the point? As we know, all of these shows are very expensive to make, regardless of the endless spectacle and CGI. A lot of these series are shot on location, which in itself proves to be very costly. And normally with a HBO production, you just expect a lot more. And if it is their intention to continue and have people invested a lot more in any future Game of Thrones installments, they're going to have to do a lot better than this first episode in terms of just overall events and incidents and overall significance, because I don't really think that a show like this will garner much hype. And it's been rumoured to have already been renewed for a second season, but if they want to justify any further hype or excitement, they're really going to have to do much better than this first overall episode. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings on the first instalment of A Night of Second Kingdoms. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know within the comments, and I'll see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.